Okay, so picture this Christmas Day, 2007, Paradise Valley Village, Arizona. A man known as Homeless Jesus is found tragically burning to death in a strip mall courtyard, no less. We're diving into the puzzling case of Aaron Taylor today. And trust me, this one will stick with you. We've got a true crime podcast episode for this one. And it's packed with interviews from detectives. Oh, and Aaron's family, too.
Wow.
Our mission, if you choose to accept it, is to figure out if this was a horrible accident or, something much darker.
Yeah, you know that nickname, Homeless Jesus? I don't know. It always gets to me.
Really?
It kind of says a lot about how we view, those less fortunate. Like, on the one hand, there's this sense of reverence, almost like people saw Aaron as like, I don't know, some sort of saintly figure. But he was still homeless,
Right.
still marginalized. Makes you wonder if all that compassion ever translated to real help?
That's a really good point. And to make things even more complicated, we're dealing with a web of conflicting witness statements
Oh, yeah.
and a real lack of physical evidence.
Yikes.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces are missing and the other half are, well, they're charred beyond recognition.
Absolutely. That lack of solid evidence makes this deep dive all the more challenging, that's for sure. We're going to have to carefully sift through what we have, look for any subtle clues that might point us in the right direction.
Right.
It's going to be tough.
So let's go back to that fateful Christmas day. Witnesses describe the initial scene as pure chaos. Imagine hearing screams and seeing a fire, but initially dismissing it as some kind of a, I don't know, holiday prank.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't until the firefighters arrived that the horrifying reality set in.
It's almost as if there's this psychological barrier there, a reluctance to believe that something so awful could happen,
Yeah.
especially on a day meant for, celebration and joy.
Right.
It kind of speaks to the power of denial, but also to the way we often just distance ourselves from uncomfortable truths.
And that denial probably made collecting evidence even harder for the investigators.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, think about it. The fire, the water and foam from the firefighters, all those potential contaminants mixing with whatever clues might have been there.
Ugh, yeah. It's a forensic nightmare.
So who was Aaron Taylor, the man behind this tragic story? From what we gathered from the podcast, he was a familiar face around that strip mall. Witnesses described him as, like, a friendly guy, someone who struggled with alcoholism but never caused any trouble.
Right, yeah. But the podcast also revealed a kind of a darker side to Aaron's life, This pattern of harassment, it really paints a grim picture of how he was treated by some in the community.
Yeah, it came out that Aaron had been targeted by this group of young men who hung out at the strip mall. Witnesses described them as troublemakers who got a kick out of getting Aaron drunk and then mocking or even assaulting him.
It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah,
A reminder that those experiencing homelessness are incredibly vulnerable.
absolutely.
They often lack the support systems and resources to protect themselves from exploitation and violence. And sadly, their suffering is often overlooked or dismissed by society at large.
Yeah, the names of Nate, Max, Charlie, and Donnie came up repeatedly in connection with this harassment. Witnesses even compared this group to Beavis and Butthead, which, I mean, paints a pretty vivid picture of their immaturity and recklessness.
And remember, these weren't just like idle threats or childish pranks. These were acts of cruelty directed at someone already struggling to survive on the margins of society. It's a stark reminder of the power dynamics at play and how easily those dynamics can be abused.
The autopsy report only added to the mystery. It confirmed that Aaron was alive when he caught fire. But the manner of death was initially undetermined.
Really?
The police simply didn't have enough evidence to say for sure if it was an accident or, a deliberate act.
Oh, wow.
And wouldn't you know it, the security cameras didn't capture the courtyard where it happened.
Talk about a setback. No security footage meant that the police had to rely almost entirely on witness statements, which, as we'll soon see, proved to be a slippery slope. Human memory is a fickle thing,
Right.
easily influenced by stress, bias, and even just the simple passage of time.
And as we delve into those witness accounts, the plot only sickens. Buckle up, because things are about to get really complicated.
Indeed. The first witness, Robert, he provides some crucial information, but his story changes over time, raising serious questions about his reliability. It's a classic example of how even the most well-intentioned witness can unintentionally muddy the waters of an investigation.
Yeah, so Robert initially told the police that he saw Nate and Charlie at the courtyard with Aaron, shortly before the fire. But he couldn't identify the other two guys who were also there.
So we're missing, like, two key pieces of the puzzle right from the get-go.
Right. And get this. In a later interview, Robert changes his story.
Oh, no.
Yeah, suddenly he remembers seeing Max, Nate's brother, walking towards the courtyard with a red gas can.
Wait, hold on. How do you just forget a detail like that? A red gas can.
No,
That's pretty significant. I know, right?
Mhm.
It really makes you wonder, was it a genuine memory lapse?
Hmm.
Or was something else going on?
Right.
Maybe Robert was afraid to, implicate Max initially, or perhaps he felt pressure to provide more information,
Yeah.
even if it wasn't completely accurate.
Right.
Memory can be a tricky thing, especially in high-stress situations.
Absolutely. It's like that game of telephone we talked about, right? The more a story gets passed around, the more it changes. And in this case, we've got a whole network of rumors and speculations swirling around the truth.
Exactly. It makes it incredibly difficult to separate fact from fiction. One rumor claimed that Nate had been bragging about setting Aaron on fire,
Oh, wow.
but it turned out to be based on, unreliable hearsay,
So not everything you hear is true. Got it.
especially in a case like this, with all the emotions running high.
Okay, so we've got unreliable witnesses and rumors flying around. And just when you think it can't get any more confusing, another witness pops up with a whole new version of events.
Oh boy, here we go.
This one claims Donnie was flicking lit matches at Aaron and accidentally set him on fire.
Okay, so now we have the possibility of an accident.
Yeah,
Tragic, but unintentional.
right.
But here's the thing. This witness, Ryan, wasn't even there that night.
Oh, seriously.
Yeah, he heard about it from Ramon, another guy who supposedly saw what happened.
So now we're dealing with secondhand information.
Exactly. It just adds another layer of uncertainty to the whole thing.
So the police track down Ramon, and this is where it gets interesting. At first, he denied being at the courtyard.
Oh.
But then the police bluffed and said they had security footage.
Wait, but they didn't.
Right.
Wait.
Wow. And wouldn't you know it, Ramon cracked under pressure.
Well, that's one way to get someone talking. But can we really trust what he said under those circumstances? I mean, that's kind of messed up, isn't it?
It's a tough call, ethically speaking.
Right.
But it did get Ramon talking.
So what did he say? What happened that night?
Well, according to Ramon, Donnie had been trying to light a blunt. And, he was flicking lit matches around.
Carelessly.
Very carelessly. And one of those matches landed on Aaron, who, as Ramon put it, was passed out drunk on the bench.
Oh, no.
And get this, Ramon claims that Donnie and his buddies, they saw Aaron's sleeve catch fire, but they just drove away.
Wow. So they just left him there to burn.
That's what Ramon says.
Even if it was an accident, to just drive away like that. I mean, that shows a chilling lack of empathy.
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing.
It really makes you think about how quickly a situation can escalate from recklessness to tragedy.
Based on Ramon's statement, the police officially changed Aaron's manner of death to homicide. They also finally submitted those used matches from the scene for DNA analysis.
Okay, so it sounds like things were finally starting to move in the right direction.
You'd think, right.
What happened?
The DNA tests didn't match any of the suspects.
Oh, come on. So close, yet so far.
Exactly. Back to square one. Years went by with no real progress. And then, in 2016, the police decided to revisit the case.
Okay.
They re-interviewed Robert, that first witness who was with Aaron in the courtyard.
Yeah.
Remember how Robert's story changed before?
Yeah, with the gas can.
Well, guess what? It happened again.
Ugh, not again. What did he say this time?
He insisted that Max, not Charlie, was the one carrying the red gas can that night. I mean, at this point, it's enough to make your head spin.
Right. Makes you question everything you thought you knew about the case.
And Robert's memory.
Yeah. Is he intentionally misleading the investigators? Or is he just confused after all this time?
It really makes you think about how the passage of time can impact witness testimony. Memories fade, details get muddled, and, new information or influences can reshape what we remember, sometimes without us even realizing it.
Yeah. It's a tricky thing. It's like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces keep changing shape.
Right. And to make matters worse, over the years, new names and nicknames emerged. But none of those leads won anywhere. There was talk of a color banger and a psycho, but those figures remained elusive, almost like, ghosts from a rumor mill.
It's a reminder that in cases like this, information can be like quicksand.
How so?
Well, the more you struggle to grasp it, the deeper you sink into a mire of uncertainty. And sometimes the truth remains buried beneath layers of speculation, half-truths, and deliberate obfuscation.
The police did eventually locate Nate. But, wouldn't you know it, he lawyered up and refused to talk. Charlie, on the other hand, vanished.
Wow, talk about hitting a brick wall.
It's incredibly frustrating for everyone involved, especially Aaron's family.
It's a heartbreaking situation. They're left with more questions than answers, their grief compounded by a system that seems to have failed them.
It's a story that stays with you, that's for sure. We've gone through so much information, witness statements, rumors, dead ends, and still, we don't know the truth about what happened to Aaron Taylor.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating, not to mention heartbreaking. This case really makes you think about our justice system, and how we treat the most vulnerable people in our society.
Absolutely. So let's say you were the detective on this case. Where would you go from here? What would you focus on to try and get some answers?
Well, if I were still on the case, I'd go back to those key witnesses, Ramon and Robert. Their stories are crucial, but there are a lot of inconsistencies. I'd re-interview them, try to read between the lines, sometimes a little hesitation, a change in body language. It can tell you more than words ever could.
It's like you're trying to figure out who's holding back, who's embellishing, and who's actually trying to help.
Exactly. And I wouldn't just focus on what they said, but also on what they didn't say. What are they avoiding? What makes it uncomfortable? Those are the areas I'd be most interested in.
It sounds like a lot of work, trying to separate truth from fiction like that.
Oh, it is. But the most important clues aren't always the big dramatic revelations. Sometimes it's the little things that don't quite add up, the details that most people would just overlook.
Okay, so besides the witness statements, what else would you look into?
I dig deeper into the relationships between those involved. Like, what was the deal with that group of guys who were harassing Aaron? Was there a leader? Was there some kind of beef going on between them?
Interesting. So like a psychological profile of the group?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd go back to those rumors too. Callbanger, psycho. Who are those guys? Did they even exist? Sometimes those crazy rumors can have a grain of truth to them.
So you'd be chasing shadows, basically.
Pretty much. But hey, you never know. Maybe someone out there knows something, just hasn't come forward yet. It happens. People's consciences can weigh on them. Or maybe they were afraid to talk before, and now they're not.
True. Sometimes all it takes is time.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that Aaron wasn't just, some random homeless guy. He was a person, someone's son, someone's brother. He deserved a lot better than what happened to him.
Well said. And to everyone listening, we encourage you to check out the source material. Listen to that podcast episode, read the articles, watch the news reports, dive into the details, examine the evidence, and decide for yourself what you think happened.
And as you go through all that, think about this. What does this case tell us about memory, about the power of silence, and about fighting for justice, even when it seems like a lost cause?
Those are some really great questions to think about.
It's a case that'll stay with you, that's for sure.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to The Deep Dive, and we'll see you next time.